Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Jai Shri Krishna, Chaurasi Vaishnav Ki Varta, the 84 Vaishnavas. This is the 7th reading, the 7th day of reading. And now we are on Varta 3, the story of Sri Damodas Sambhalware, a Kshatriya from Kanauj. Bhav Prakash. Even as a child, Damodas Sambhalware was attached to the Lord and pondered upon how he could meet him. On one occasion he went to Prayag to bathe in the sacred waters of the Triveni Sangam on the Makara Shankaranti or spring equinox day. There he met Krishnadas Meghan, who told him that Shivalabhacharyaji was now present on the earth, but that he was in the south of India right now. He was at the court of King Krishnadeva, where he had defeated the impersonalist Brahmins in open discussion. Krishnadas told Damodas Sambhalware that Sri Acharyaji could bless him to have the direct sight of the Lord. He told Damodas Sambhalware of his fate, namely that because of his misdirected affection for his previous guru, he had not at first been worthy of receiving the divine reward. But, he said, now he would follow Sri Acharyaji to the ends of the earth, and taking his leave, proceeded to the south. After Krishnadas Meghan had left to see Acharyaji, Damodas Sambhalware suffered intense pangs of separation. All the time he pondered upon how he would be able to meet Sri Acharyaji. It was in this state of mind that he was, in the month of Magha, taking his bath at Prayag. Whilst he was bathing, a letter inscribed on copper came into his hand at the confluence of the Sri Gangaji and the Sri Yamunaji rivers. He brought it home. That night as he lay asleep he had a dream wherein he was instructed to take as his guru whomsoever was able to decipher the inscription. Many great pundits of advanced learning had come to Prayag for the sake of the holy bath, and Damodas Sambhalware asked all of them to read the inscription, but none of them were able to do so. Shortly after, Damodas Sambhalware went to Varanasi to visit State Purushottam Das on business. He took the letter with him and showed it to Purushottam Das, who told him, Sri Acharyaji will be able to decipher this. No one else will have the ability. Damodar Das told the Setji about how Krishnadas Meghan had said the same, and had told him that he could only attain full surrender to the Lord through Sri Acharyaji. Hearing all of this, Seth Purushottam Das became very excited and began to crave a sight of Sri Acharyaji. This story has been recounted in his own Varta. Damodas Sambhalware stayed for 15 days in Varanasi. No one was able to read the letter. He returned home to Kanauj. He suffered severe pangs of separation until Sri Acharyaji himself came there some months later. Mahaprabhuji camped in a garden some distance from the town. Part 1. Sri Acharyaji arrived in Kanauj and set up camp in a garden a short distance from the town. He sent Krishnadas into town to bring supplies, but asked him not to announce his arrival. Bhav Prakash. Sri Acharyaji knew that if Krishnadas met Damodas Sambhalware, he would tell him where to visit him. Damodas Sambhalware was a moneyed man. Sri Acharyaji did not want Krishnadas to even think that he had invited him because of his wealth. This is why he asked him not to publicize his arrival. Those who were inspired with pure love would arrive there of their own accord. Another reason for not announcing his arrival was that Sri Thakurji had told Sri Acharyaji to go to Kanauj to purify and accept the embodied souls of divine orientation who were living there. Sri Acharyaji knew that since this was the will of the Lord, those souls would naturally gravitate towards him, and so it was not necessary to spread the news of his encampment there. Part 1 continued. Then Krishnadas went into the village to purchase the necessary supplies. On his way back, he met Damodadas Sambhalware, who was coming from the king's palace. Recognizing Krishnadas, he got off his horse, bowed to him, and inquired from him if Sri Mahaprabhuji had arrived. Upholding Sri Acharyaji's wish, he said nothing and walked on. Damodadas concluded that Krishnadas would not be there if Sri Acharyaji had not come, and so, having sent his horse home, he followed Krishnadas. Sri Acharyaji saw them both approaching the camp. Damodadas Sambhalware bowed down to him. Sri Acharyaji asked Krishnadas why he had told him of his presence. Krishnadas denied that he had. Damodadas Sambhalware told Sri Acharyaji that he had not been told, but that he followed Krishnadas. Sri Acharyaji asked him to give him the letter engraved on copper. Damodadas asked him why he wanted it. Sri Acharyaji recounted, "You have already been told that the one who can decipher the writing thereon will be your guru. Therefore give it to me." Damodadas had the letter brought there. Bhav Prakash. Sri Acharyaji asked Krishnadas why he had told Damodadas of his arrival when he had been told not to. That is when Damodadas interjected that Krishnadas had not told him anything, but that he had followed him. In this way, his humility was perfected. Thereafter, Damodadas Sambhalware asked why it was necessary to bring the letter. From this, it is understood that Damodadas had already recognized Sri Acharyaji to be non-different from the Lord. Sri Acharyaji told him to obey the command of the Lord and bring it over there. Part 1 continued. When the letter arrived, Mahaprabhuji read the inscription. He told Damodadas Sambhalware what it meant and then gave him the first stage initiation. Damodadas invited Sri Acharyaji to his house. There Sri Acharyaji initiated with Brahmasambandh Damodadas and his wife, along with a third person, the housemaid who lived with them, for she was a divinely oriented soul, Devi Jeev. Damodadas then asked Sri Acharyaji how he should live from now on. Sri Acharyaji ordered him to find a Krishna deity and to serve him. He found one at the house of a tailor, paid for it, and brought it home. He and his wife changed all the cloth and pots in the house, and Mahaprabhuji established that deity in Seva at their house by bathing him in the Vedic manner with 5 substances, ghee, honey, water, milk, and yogurt, and named him Sri Dwarakanathji. Sri Acharyaji called this Swarup deity Sri Dwarakanathji because when he gave this seva to Damodadas, it was the first time he had established the service of Sri Dwarakanathji, who is the glorious kingly form of Sri Krishna. Part 1 continued. They set Sri Dwarakanathji up on a fine altar. Sri Acharyaji prepared the food offerings and then accepted the foodstuffs back as prasad and followed them with an offering of the fragrant pan leaf. However, the leaf was not ripe. Sri Acharyaji admonished Damodadas by telling him to only ever offer the very best and perfect things for the Lord. And perfect things, for the Lord best enjoys the best offerings. Husband and wife began to serve the Lord very carefully and enthusiastically. Mahaprabhuji taught him that it is not appropriate to offer the Lord anything that has already been used for a personal purpose, for example, cloth from a roll from which something had already been made. The first part of anything must be offered to the Lord. No part of anything purchased for offering should be used for any other purpose before making that offering. For example, their offerings of mango juice were made in a bowl of gold. The bowl and the juice matched as so well, it was almost impossible to know that there was anything at all in that bowl. Bhav Prakash. Then Sri Acharyaji taught them about the principles of offering, for example, the cloth. Anything already used should not be presented to the Lord. Anything that has been offered to him is known as prasadi, already offered and accepted back as his grace. The first part of everything and anything must go to him. These are the ways of the path of grace. The yellow mango juice offered matched the golden bowl, so it was secret and part of the intimate play of Sri Swamiji and Sri Krishna. Gold is always regarded as Sri Swamiji's form, and silver as Sri Chandravali Ji. Part 1 continued. Soon afterwards, Sri Acharyaji again set out on his circumambulation of India. Translator's note: the phrase Prithvi Parikrama translates as circumambulating the earth. According to the following stories, Sri Acharyaji travelled all around India in his endeavour to grace the divine souls. Therefore, from here on, we will use the wording Holy Grace Pilgrimage to denote this expression. Damodas used to fetch all the well water for his seva by himself. One day his father-in-law came there and said it was, from the point of view of family prestige, shameful for him to do so, telling him to get their maidservant to bring the water. But Damodas Sambhalware remembered the words of the great poet Suradas, who wrote, "In this age of Kali, do your service without fear of worldly opinion, and again, don't concern yourself with societal law. Surrender exclusively to the Lord's service." He then asked his wife to join him in fetching the water. She was an accomplished Vaishnava and agreed. The next day they both went. He carried one pot and she the other, and they passed by the father-in-law's shop on the way back. The father-in-law again came to Damodas, and this time held his feet and apologized to him for asking him not to carry water, but also implored him to go by himself and not take his wife along, after which he would so no longer interfere. Damodas continued to fetch the water, but by himself. The Lord began to communicate with Damodas, who pleased the Lord through his service, and the Lord spoke to him, began to ask him for whatever he wanted, and speak to him directly. Sri Acharyaji was very happy with the way he served his Thakurji. He commented that Damodadas's seva was as good as that of the great King Ambarish's seva was done with attention to lawful limitations, whilst that of Damodadas was done totally according to the ways of the path of grace, and was therefore far superior. Bhav Prakash. When Damodas Sambhalware was fetching water from the well, his heart's sentiment was that he was bringing water from the Sri Yamunaji river. That is why he compared his seva to the great king Ambarish's, which was also nicely elaborate, but within the path of lawful limitations. Damodadas's seva was superior within the Pushti realm, the grace-filled path and way, and therefore docked it as far superior, and to which Ambarish's could not even compare. Just as it is a failed comparison to say that the Lord's lotus face is like the moon, Pushti Margya seva ways are millions of times superior. At first, when Damodas Sambhalware's father-in-law asked him not to allow his wife to fetch water, he agreed, but then afterwards reasoned to himself that he had already asked his wife to participate in the service of fetching water, and if he were to stop her now, that would mean that the father-in-law's defective reasoning would fall upon his shoulders. So he thought that he would ask her not to go, but then if she was happy to be doing this seva, then she herself would not want to stop it. He thought, if she can do it once, she can do it 100 times. The village people are already used to it. Why should I stop her from making the service? If she is doing it out of affection for the Lord, then she will continue. If not, then I am forcing her. It's not that I am forcing her, and anyway, if she was not doing it out of love for the Lord, then he would accept that service anyway. But I will tell her, just once, not to go. After all this told her he would just go by himself in the future in order not to upset the father-in-law. The wife agreed, but this meant that the father-in-law's instructions of wrong intention affected her, and later on she lost her pure faith. Damodas Sambhalware, on the other hand, reasoned that if he were to stop fetching that water for his Lord, then it would constitute a devotional obstruction for both of them. Thus he continued with the water service. This is the conclusion of part 1 of the Varta of Sri Damodas Ji Sambhalware. Part 2 will continue tomorrow. Jai Shri Krishna. Radhe Radhe.